It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
the hyperspace
podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the hyperspace podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first, and can you believe it, still only podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
This is Mike.
Guys, season 4 is trucking along.
I just want to say something real quick.
What do you want to say, Mike?
You'd think this podcast thing would have caught on by now.
Well,
us being the only ones out there seems a little strange.
It's intimidating to go up against something so powerful as this podcast. You know
what I feel like we're kind of like Rocky when he's on the steps giving his speech, and Clubber Lang yells from the crowd. Those other podcasts are Clubber Lang.
That's true.
And they're out there.
They're punks.
But they haven't come at us yet. We haven't heard a, "Hey, woman." "Hey, woman." But they're out there. I believe they will show themselves.
Well, the medium's going to catch fire. And, of course, we are the first, only podcast.
It has to. It has to.
And to remind you, we are bringing pop culture and everything cool to the 25th century because they have nothing here. Nothing. After 4 seasons of living in the 25th century, it's still pretty drab, guys.
I know. I was hoping our influence would be greater than it has been, but I still see way too many beige unitards.
Yeah, but did you see the Cobra Kai ones?
I miss those.
There's a couple Cobra Kai No Mercy unitards floating around there, so it's out there. It's happening. I think it's because Mike watched Karate Kid finally that it's finally bouncing its way through the temporal nexus into the future.
That could be
the great balancer. But it's aside from the ant overlords, which everyone in the 25th century kind of cowers to. There really there's not that many aliens, guys. I thought that we'd have a lot more access to aliens at this point.
In the 25th century, yes. If watching Star Trek and Buck Rogers in the 25th century has taught me anything, there should be all kinds of crazy aliens out there.
Yeah, not many.
Yeah,
but
I haven't seen any.
It got me thinking though about growing up, how many bad, but also how many very cool aliens I got to see in all my movies and TV shows.
Yes, and I think that's sorely lacking these days.
I thought we could discuss some of our favorite aliens that we grew up with, alien species or whatnot.
I like where your head's at.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, slowly and surely drew their plans against us.
Guys, we had every alien at our fingertips growing up. Every cool thing that was happening, I think we were in the golden age of alien movies, from good to bad. And some were really bad, but some were really awesome.
Absolutely.
You guys, think about it. Tell me what you think about my aliens, and I want to hear about yours.
I'm going to tell you what the best one is right now, hands down.
Okay.
The aliens at the end of Explorers.
Oh, God.
No, that's not true.
Oh, go back and listen to our Explorers episode if you haven't listened to it yet. That's not true. That's
Go ahead, Matt. I didn't
not
mean
even
to step on you
remotely
there.
great. No, that's all right. So I'm going to go way, way back. I'm going to throw one that probably hasn't held up really well, and it probably wouldn't hold up if you watched it now. But I'm going to say the Slee Stacks.
Are they
Can I tell you-
aliens by the true definition?
Well, they're alien to me. They were lizards and they walked around. I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
Because when I was
Okay.
a kid, that show, Land of the Lost, was hands down my favorite show when I was a little kid.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talked about that show on the podcast before. And, that show opened my whole mind up to dinosaurs and, the fantasy world of that, the lost world
The
kind
Skylons and the Pylons.
of. Oh, man. But those things scared the hell out of me when I
Yes.
was younger.
Yeah.
Legit. They'd freak me out.
Yeah. They scared me as a kid. And, I introduced that show to my daughter when she was younger. Probably, 3 or 4 years old. And she was into it. I showed it to her on DVD.
I mean, that's not far off from the age we were when it came out.
True. But, it was playing in her bedroom. And, me and my wife were in the living room. And she just started crying hysterically. I was like, whoa, what the heck? Did she fall? What's going on? And we ran in there.
Took the padlock off.
Yes, the padlock was off. And there were Slee Stacks on the screen. And she was covering her eyes and crying. And I was like, man, they still got it. They still got it. All these years later, they still
You
got
say,
it.
what's wrong with you, kid? Are you stupid? Can't you tell those are
Yeah.
guys in suits?
Yeah, I held her eyes open and made her watch it. Made her look at the
Like
screen.
Alex from Clockwork Orange.
Yes. So the Slee Stacks are good. Alien, like Mike said, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we just...
Did they ever do
They
an
are-
origin story from them? I
They-
will
they
say
are-
that I found them frightening as well, to be honest.
I
with
mean,
you.
you're right. They're not really aliens, but
But
they're
they're-
kind of
they're from a-
alien to the people they're up against.
They're from a different dimension.
I mean, is that an
obviously.
alien? I mean, do they have to come from outer space? Interdimensional
well, isn't that
beings
kind
might
of the
be aliens.
definition of alien?
Well, I don't know. I've never met an interdimensional being. I mean, that might be an alien.
I mean, the word it's.
Well, I mean, at least she was upset with the Slee Stacks, and it
Yes.
wasn't like watching Spencer Milligan fall down the pit.
No, that.
Well, I think
is
if they
a
came
smashing
from
his
another
teeth.
dimension, then they would probably qualify as aliens. But I'd have to have verification that was in fact their origin.
That's fair. All right, fair point.
I
Fair
just
point.
keep thinking about Spencer Milligan falling in holes. It's like he had to get a whole false bridge put in because the way he hit that thing,
Oh,
all
so
his
bad.
front teeth were gone.
Now, Spencer,
Tell you
here's
a
what we're
great
gonna
thing
do.
about Spencer Mulligan is that the Star Wars Holiday Special copy I have, there are two commercials that have
With
him in it.
Spencer?
Yeah,
Oh, he did like some liquor brand.
he
or
did a
something, didn't
wine one, and then
Yeah,
there's one
wine.
where he was like, I can't remember if he was a doctor or something, but he's in
Spencer
two
Mulligan.
of them.
He also was
Yeah,
an
it probably
episode
wasn't
of
hard.
Police Squad.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
he was.
right. He was the bomber, right?
Yeah.
Spencer probably wasn't hard to get him to do stunts. They probably just said, just put him in his trailer for 30 minutes. He'll get all liquored up, and Spencer, just walk over this tarp that looks like dirt.
Yeah.
It's not a 15-foot pit down to a hard concrete bottom. We promise.
Well, there goes any
Oh.
chance of him coming on and
All I'm saying
being
is
interviewed.
no. Just
Is he still alive?
he is.
He is.
Go to YouTube and Google and search for Spencer Milligan takes a fall. You'll thank us. Trust me.
All right, so the questionable Slee Stack interdimensional being / alien, perhaps, but that's my kickoff.
Okay, that's a good one. Do you have one, Mike?
Well, I was thinking of I guess Slee Stacks were probably one of the first otherworldly creatures I was exposed to as a child. It's kind of hard. I don't know if it was Star Trek or Star Wars, but I will say a creature that did scare me to death as a kid was the salt vampire from Star Trek. That thing is hideous.
Yeah.
It's killing the captain. Shoot it, Doctor, quickly. No. No. It's killing the captain. Shoot, quick. I won't shoot Nancy. This is not Nancy. If she were Nancy, could she take this? Stop it. Stop it, Spock. Stop it.
From the man trap.
Yeah, that thing is just horrifying. A thing of nightmares. Even now, looking at it, it's just terrifying to look at.
Well, describe it for someone who hasn't seen it.
Well, it looks like a big dirty hippie for starters. And it has like a fishnet for clothing. And its face is like, its mouth is just perfectly round. And I guess does it have suction cups on its fingers? I can't remember. Yeah.
It does.
And the eyes were just, I mean, this thing is just nightmarish. When that thing gets a hold of Kirk, and it's just the thought of that thing touching you, it's just no.
Well, it would transfix you. It would like hypnotize you so you couldn't move, and you just sit there and watch it get closer to you, and then when it touched you, people just started screaming. Like I remember Shatner just letting out a
he goes. Ah! But the thing that's interesting is, and when you read about that episode, that the actors are kind of down on it because it was the first episode to air, and everyone thought, "Oh no, not this one. This isn't one of our better episodes." But I think that's a great episode, and I think that, I mean, it's definitely like a monster movie, but you know that was the thing about Trek. It had different types of
Well, I mean,
stories.
I think it was pretty clever to bring in a vampire horror story into space, and I thought they made a pretty good explanation for it. Into
but
the practical world
in classic Trek Trek fashion, it had a story. It was
the story they tell is a way like they roam the landscape like buffalo, and that image was like, oh my gosh. Can you imagine landing on the planet and you just go over the summit and you look down and you're like, time to go.
There's just a bunch of greasy Wookiees running around down there. Yeah. But it's the last of its kind, and it's kind of weird when you think about it because it's a shapeshifter, and it's living with this doctor and posing as his wife.
And the insinuation is made that he is
it's for companionship
and living out his fantasies.
Well, I don't.
My favorite is when they first land and they see it, and they each see, like McCoy sees it as the woman he was in love with, but like his age, and then Kirk sees her as the woman that McCoy sees, but no, McCoy sees her as younger. Kirk sees her
as a real,
and then the crewman sees her as like a prostitute he saw on a different planet.
Yeah.
I could swear you look just like this.
Which is funny because maybe it kind of like forms into what it knows.
Yeah, that's exactly
that person wants. So does Kirk into like these older women? I mean, maybe he
maybe it was trying not to at that point arouse
the
suspicion.
grandma look.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah,
and they used it. They used it again in another great episode, The Squire of Gothos, when they mounted the costume on the wall like a
it was like part of his trophy wall.
Which
what was the name of that episode with the vampire?
The Man Trap.
Yeah, the Man Trap.
That was Man Trap.
That was the first episode of Trek ever aired. So that is the first Star Trek villain, if you think about it, or the first alien. I mean, it's not counting Mr. Spock, of course. So I don't think I'm going straight back to my childhood, but I'm going to talk about a creature that we know as the alien from Alien.
The xenomorph.
And Aliens. Yes, the xenomorph.
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism. Its structural perfection is matched only by its hostility.
You admire it.
I admire its purity. A survivor. Unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality.
I think that's just a pretty fantastic creature all the way around as far as, life cycle. And I thought it was sort of...
I think the life cycle is probably the thing that really makes it unique.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, it's very unique looking.
Yeah.
But, the whole life cycle, especially in the first Alien movie, before all the sequels and the prequels and everything, it's so strange and mysterious, and you don't really understand. You're sort of taken on a journey through what this thing is, from the face hugger to the chest burster to its final form. But I actually read the novelization of Alien before I saw the movie.
Shocked.
Yes. Well, I at a certain age,
we were pretty young. I think
I wasn't allowed to watch it, so
I remember a guy at school told me about it, and then my uncle bought the comic book adaptation, and I got to look at it for like 5 minutes before he took it back away from me.
I watched Aliens before Alien as a kid, actually, on TV.
Okay, you saw Aliens first.
Yeah.
Well,
but I remember the toy commercials. That was probably my first real exposure to it.
How in the world can you have toy commercials to a rated R?
Well, they made that toy.
That
space horror
that
movie.
like 15-inch tall alien doll, which
it's
is
a great commercial. Like the kids are playing in this room with the lights off.
Kenner presents new Alien action figure.
Let's go! Quick, shut the L off. The alien's locked out now. He got through. Give up. Alien can't be beat. We'll zap him with the light. Darn, he'll destroy the spaceship. We've lost. Better find another ship. Let's try the kitchen. Another triumph for Alien.
Alien action figure, new from Kenner.
That's a pretty cool toy and quite expensive these days.
Let me tell you a story about that toy if I can real quick.
Sure.
My uncle, when I used to go to Pennsylvania, we'd go to Pennsylvania like once every year or two. My uncle always took me to go buy some Star Wars toys. That was like one of the things I look forward to. And I remember we were in the toy aisle and they had the Alien figure. And I wanted the Alien figure instead of the Star Wars. And my uncle did not want me to get it. And he was and finally he goes, look, these toys go with your other toys. This toy doesn't go with anything, so we won't be able to play with it with anything else. And it kind of sold me. I was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. So I got Star Wars figures. I'm pretty sure one of those was a Darth Vader that got lost in the ocean. But anyway.
Oh, wow. Well, the Alien. Sticking with the toy for a second, I did buy my daughter the company Super 7, which makes a lot of the retro figures. They came out with an Aliens version of that big doll, and it's in the same kind of box and everything from the 70s, except it just has Aliens on it instead of Alien, and the alien looks a little more like the ones from the second movie, but it's still giant.
Does it have the smooth top or the
no?
The ridged?
No, it has the ridge top because it's part 2. But yeah, my wife won't. She won't be in a room with that thing. She's like, put that. I don't want to see that. Put that in your closet. I'm not going to have that looking at me.
That Alien and Aliens too, both Alien and the movie Aliens. I thought they did such a good job with every piece of that life cycle, from the egg to the facehugger. Facehuggers are terrifying. I mean, to me, a facehugger is just as terrifying as the end result.
Yes,
but they made it so, with it, the facehugger first off, getting on the person and then impregnating them with the embryo inside, the chest burster. Every stage of that life cycle with a person
is horrifying.
I thought it's horrifying because I think it was very tangible to everybody watching that could picture that happening.
Yeah.
Everyone could picture how that would feel in their face.
Well, the intention was basically and I'm not trying to be dark here, but it was by design. That was supposed to be a rape. I mean, really, that's how they designed it.
Well, of course.
That's what Dan O'Bannon, because
you're getting a proboscis shoved down your throat.
I mean, I think as far as the universe would go, that would probably qualify, certainly. But the way they portrayed it, everyone could empathize with those people being taken down by those facehuggers and watching their chest burst apart.
Yeah,
it's horrifying.
And being alive throughout the entire ordeal.
If you think about it, too, have you ever just thought about the force that thing would have to punch through?
Go through the sternum.
I mean, really, that's really kind of grisly.
I mean, look, every single stage of an Alien was very well done.
It had acid for blood. I'd say another thing about the design. It's on the toy, and you can see it in the movie.
You fill it with battery acid and then you rip its arm off.
There's a human skull in it.
Yes, there was early designs of the creature.
I gotta look.
It had like a translucent dome, and you could see like it looked like a human skull.
And the toy, if you take off that plastic smooth beam shape thing, the white skull is underneath it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's crazy looking.
Yeah, Alien, top notch. I mean, listen, both I think Alien and Aliens are perfect movies. To their, I think they're both really watchable.
The Queen is
really exciting,
great design from the original.
Yeah. It was a great addition to the lore.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, good choice. Definitely, really awesome stuff.
We're back to Matt now.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another one out there, which you guys are probably going to debate me on here.
Oh
but
boy, is it going to be?
I'm going to go back.
Marvin, I don't know. Go ahead.
It's Marvin.
Marvin the Martian.
No, I'm gonna go with the Cylons, the original series.
Attention! His Eminence, the Imperious Leader, will be with us shortly.
Well, they're built by aliens.
Or in the theatrical cut, their origins were explained differently.
Yeah, I think we have to go with the original origin.
What's the difference?
That they fought the alien Cylon.
The Cylons are lizards.
Yeah, the lizards.
Yeah, that's the one I'm familiar with. What's the alternate?
Yeah, and then they made the Cylon robots.
Right, I thought the origin was they fought the Cylons, but the Cylons died out, so they built the robots to basically take their place. Wasn't that?
Yeah, I think that's
that is one of them. In
the Imperious Leader, I think, was one of the last remaining lizard Cylons.
Yeah, the Imperious Leader's a weird. He had that
never really fully explained.
No, he's just this bug-looking guy that's sitting on.
Has the same voice as
Patrick McNee. Yeah. Now those that believe, life here began out there.
I love that theatrical version of that show. Yeah. I think it's just great.
So, hey, look,
but the Cylons are like Terminators, which is
But if there's a prolific race of replicating robots roaming the universe, that might, in my opinion, qualify as an alien race at that point. If they're substantial and they're capable of inflicting, mass damage.
Yeah.
Whether they're synthetic or not, if they're sentient and rocking and rolling, then I think they got to qualify as an alien at that point.
Well, I think they're scary. I mean, even as a kid, because their purpose was to just kill humans. Like I said, they're like Terminators. They're like a Terminator prototype, where they have that slow moving stalk. It just makes it all the more suspenseful. No, I love the original. I think the original Cylons are terrific. And the way they speak and the eye that darts back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Their mouth is kind of a rip-off of Darth Vader, but it works on its own.
Yeah. I mean, it really has, though, a very classic serial-looking kind of robot face. I mean, it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a direct rip. I'm sure it had some kind of influence.
Oh, yeah. Glenn Larson doesn't rip anyone off.
Never. Never
Glenn Larceny.
That's a real nickname, folks.
Battlestar Galactica was a major influence in my development when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
That was
when that TV movie came on, I think I've told this story before where
you fell asleep.
I fell asleep in the last 30 minutes. But I was so excited to see it.
It's your turn, Mike.
This one's a little more recent.
Okay.
All right.
The insects from Starship Troopers.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
Those things are
Hey, look.
awesome.
Starship Troopers is one of my favorite books of all time. I love Starship Troopers. I've read it, a dozen times. Book's better than the movie. Movie is great on its own for what it is. The bugs, that was kind of like when CGI was just really kind of hitting movies big time. People were very proud of it. They were like leaning hard on CGI. And
yeah, but I think it was used very effectively in that movie, and I think it still holds up. I don't
disagree
because that is early, because that's right around A New Hope. In fact, I mean not New Hope, Phantom Menace. In fact, I'd say those effects hold up better than a lot of the effects from the Phantom Menace. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, those giant insects are on the set when they shot that movie. I think they look fantastic. But I think the reason they work, and I think
some of those big insects were on the set. Some of them were practical.
I think where CGI works best is when it is showing something otherworldly as opposed to something that's kind of more realistic. Does that make sense? It's like the Hulk will always look fake because there's no giant green men. Mm-hmm. But giant insects could never be, so they look real because our brains aren't going, that's not real. I guess I don't know. I don't think I'm making sense.
I know what you mean. And I to go on that and I'll use Star Wars as kind of a bounce off. There's something about the weight of something like real weight happening, like interacting with CGI. Sometimes it doesn't look like there's any true weight or any true kind of like force contact happening when things collide with CGI in that sense. I think where Starship Troopers helped out is they're firing real weapons.
Yeah. You
with
know what?
Blanks.
I think that is I think Starship Troopers started that trend where they got away from lasers, and like after that movie in science fiction movies, you started to see them use like bullets and stuff like that.
It helped because when you're seeing the animated bugs getting hit by bullets, you're seeing people really interact with real weapons firing real practical explosion, blanks, versus like Star Wars where lightsabers are colliding with fake things, and it doesn't look like there's any true weight happening with it. It doesn't look like there's true collisions in that regard. Even though it looks good, there's something missing, I always thought, in that kind of CGI, where when you put, like in Starship Troopers, every time they're fighting, they're firing a gun, they're doing something. There's an interaction with the real human that can then be translated
or even when
CGI, which
they grab a person and they just fling them in the air, and then they all like convert. What's the word? Converge on him, and they just start tearing him to pieces.
I mean, listen, I was very excited when Starship Troopers came out. I still love it. It's campy greatness, and I know there was, a lot of statements trying to be made in it, but the book had a lot of statements it was trying to make too at the time. So, I mean, it's very divergent from the book, but it's fun to watch.
And I think it was a great transition. It's one of those transitional movies.
Yeah, I agree. It was in that time where everything kind of switched over. Yep.
And it's Phil Tippett. Good for him. Made the crossover from practical to CG. Good for Phil.
Yeah.
Also, Basil Palladorius with a great score.
Love that score. Love it.
Great score. Drop from the Klendathu drop.
Oh,
Epic.
Man, that's such a great score.
Yeah.
It really is great.
Jared, what we got?
Klingons.
Classic. Now, are we talking about like the motion picture Klingons, the original series Klingons? Are we going like Star Trek 3 and beyond?
I think Klingons in general. I'm probably going to be focusing primarily on original series movies and some TNG. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Mike got really annoyed with some of the Klingon stuff because he thought it got a little too granular. I think we talked about this a while back. You're like, I don't need, you didn't like to know everything about their culture and everything. But I thought it was, especially as it applied to Worf, I thought it was some interesting stuff.
Well, he was of the TNG cast. He was one of. I had three favorites: Picard, Data, and Worf. They were my favorites.
The Klingons are interesting in that they've gone through several different iterations going back to the original series. They were basically guys painted brown
With big eyebrows.
Yes, big eyebrows. No head ridges at all. But John Colicos was a great Klingon there. He was... Baltar. He was...
Yeah, he had that... he brought that sinister quality.
You of the Federation, you are much like us. We're nothing like you. We're a democratic body. Come now, Captain. I'm not referring to minor ideological differences. I mean that we are similar as a species. Here we are on a planet of sheep. 2 tigers. Predators. Hunters. Killers. And it is precisely that which makes us great.
Wasn't the first Klingon the actor who played Trelane?
No,
Was he the first Klingon?
No, John Colicos was the first.
Oh, okay.
No,
but
I know the one you're talking about.
He came back in the Trouble with Tribbles. He was
That's right.
He was a Klingon. But
I like that actor a lot, but his Klingon was a little...
They brought I think the 3 Klingons, the main Klingons back in the Next Generation when they're old men. I think it was the last time we saw John Colicos alive, actually.
Yeah, he they returned for Deep Space Nine, and they did have the forehead ridges.
Yeah.
And there's a whole convoluted explanation for that. It goes back to Enterprise.
Right.
How it was some kind of genetic it was like a virus that was unleashed on them that like lessened their Klingon features, and
it really wasn't a necessary retcon. You didn't have to get in there and make that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was one of those things you just kind of went. You saw the original show, you saw the movies, and you went, eh.
It never bothered me.
I remember
we don't speak about that time period.
As a Star Trek nerd, it did bother me when I was a kid. I was
it just looks so cool. I mean, when the motion picture opens up, I mean, that ship they were in, those ships, they look fantastic. And they just looked so cool on that bridge. With that new makeup, and those fangs. I mean,
savage.
They were just dangerous. They looked really dangerous.
Stop.
We had Sarek in there as one of them.
Yeah, Mark Leonard.
Mark Leonard is rocking himself as a savage Bigfoot Klingon.
A savage Bigfoot Klingon.
Look, Christopher Lloyd came in Star Trek 3 and redefined what it meant to be a Klingon at that point.
Man, he was such a great Klingon.
Ahwe. Doshi bosh. Nech. Hata. Yazju. Da.
Yeah, and that's really... Star Trek 3 was the first time they started to introduce concepts of like honor and stuff like that the Next Generation would just take and run with. I also liked Christopher Plummer as Chang.
Oh yeah, he's great. That's a great movie. Star Trek 6 is fantastic.
Well, I like David Warner too.
Yeah, he was the Chancellor. Yeah, he was good.
The whole cast in Star Trek 3, though, the whole Klingon crew was great.
John Larroquette was...
I choose to die. All right, I'll kill you later.
Do not deserve to live.
I do not.
You said you would kill me.
You said you would kill me.
Yeah, that was good. But I think the Klingons are... there was an evolution that happened, obviously, from the mustache-twirling villains to... the Next Generation, where there was kind of this uneasy alliance with the Federation. Like, they were still Klingons, and they still were like, oh, we got to work with these crap humans. Yeah. Okay, but we'll do it. And I think a lot of the stuff introduced in Next Generation was kind of interesting. The Klingons.
There was a good episode of Next Generation, when Data and Picard were on a Klingon ship. It was a funny little moment where Picard was trying to sleep and Data was just like staring at him. And
yes.
He was like, can you look somewhere else? And he couldn't sleep on the bed because it was just
metal. Just a slab.
What are you looking at?
I'm not looking at anything, sir. I'm continuing to organize my files.
But you were looking at me.
I am sorry if I was disturbing you, sir. I will not look in your direction. Do you not wish to sleep, sir?
I don't think so, Mr. Data. Let's go on with the files.
I would be happy to.
Well, yeah, that was the episode with Spock, with Leonard Nimoy, where he came
Oh,
back.
was it?
Yeah, and the Klingon comes in and goes, "We do not soften our bodies with padding," and he slaps his hand on that metal thing.
I think the Next Generation, anything dealing with the Klingons, I liked. I agree. It was one of my favorite. Like, those are all great story plot lines for me in the Next Generation.
Yeah, and in Deep Space Nine, they became the bad guys again briefly. They because there's this whole war going on in Deep Space Nine with the Dominion, and the Klingons are really like, okay, you guys are a bunch of, pusses, and you don't know how to make war correctly, so we're just going to take control here. And it was interesting, but
I watched Deep Space Nine when it came out, but I don't remember a lot about it. I think I need to go back and revisit Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine is probably, I like Deep Space Nine, I think, overall better than the Next Generation.
Yeah, you've said that before. That's why I'm going to go back and watch it. I think I'm missing something. I think I need to, if I could binge it and just watch it like in a good chunk, I think I'd enjoy it more.
It finds its stride in like season 3, but after that, it's really solid.
Mm-hmm. But I remember the Dominion War was more interesting to me when they started getting into that.
Well, they had these huge space battles in that show, which are still really cool looking today, and but for a TV budget in the late 90s, it was like I was just perplexed on how it was the best space battle stuff I'd seen since like Return of the Jedi at that time. It was really crazy.
Well, Star Trek is replete with great aliens, and the Klingons definitely are top of that heap.
Yeah, and Christopher Lloyd, of course, speaking.
So great. I can't.
Let me hear.
I'll never get sick of that movie.
Put him on.
Put him on screen.
He's a great Klingon, that Christopher.
All right, I'm gonna take one that Mike's gonna kick himself for that he didn't say, but I'm gonna go back to V. The Visitors.
He tried to lob that softball at you, Mike.
Hey, I'm happy with my choice.
Okay, but
that is a good one.
So V, when we were kids, we've kind of mentioned this in the podcast before, but V was one of those mini series that came out, and then later a series that wasn't that interesting. But V was really fun and it was something really original on television.
It was like an event.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a big deal.
I mean, it was one of the last great made-for-TV movies.
It really kind of blended
like dramas.
It blended a lot of like Western / World War II and Star Wars all together, and gave you a TV movie that just was just. I saw it. I remember I rewatched it maybe 10 years ago, and although the effects are not, they are what they are, I think the show held up really well. I think
that show warrants a revisit.
So the Visitors, in case you haven't watched, are aliens that came to Earth under the promise of they had the cure for cancer or something like that. Cure for
everything. They were
for everything. They had medical
make our lives better.
And they were gonna be there, but what they were really doing was they were stealing our water and they were taking our people for food. And it turns out they were lizards wearing fake skin.
Yes, which was a very disturbing reveal for children across the nation.
Yeah, and they had that cool voice modulator on them, which I think sold it. If they didn't have the voice modulator, the show would never have been as interesting as it was.
Hello, Diana.
Welcome, Commander.
The leader sends his greetings.
I'm afraid that you've caught me by surprise.
Which they dropped that for the regular series.
Yeah,
I know.
They couldn't
Why?
afford it.
Is that really
They couldn't
why?
afford it. Yeah, it was a budget thing.
Oh man, how bad?
Dude, they
come
cropped
on.
every episode you could on the TV series. Every new episode you could see where they were like making budget cuts.
Yeah, that's
And,
like
the
Galactica
cast members
1980.
Cast members started disappearing.
Yeah,
they
I
either
remember
died or they're like, "Well, we're leaving now. You're taking
Episode
another
2.
3 people with us."
Mark Singer's already gone after episode 2.
Well, he was like one of the few that stayed. The show,
No, I know.
the first couple episodes of the series are not bad, but it really started to fall apart fast.
No, but V and then the final battle were really exciting stuff. It was really.
I love the opening titles for V the Final Battle.
There was a scene was it the final battle or the first one, where Diana opens her mouth.
That's the first time you see them not being human.
And they're spying on her in the ship.
Singer,
she unlocks her jaw like a snake, and it opens way wide. She shoves like a guinea pig down it. Freaked me out.
Yeah. Then he gets, because it's a really the way they reveal him is Donovan sees that because he's in the vents. And then he goes to another vent, and a visitor sees him and grabs him. And he starts wrestling with this visitor, right. And then that's when he pulls the mask off, and then you see the face for the first time.
So great. So great.
And remember the alien baby?
Oh, my God.
Oh, gosh, I'll never forget. My parents made me go to bed. That episode ran over 30 minutes, and my parents made me go to bed, and I missed it.
Whoa, no, that's terrible.
I had to hear about it the next day.
No, I didn't see it, but kids at school were talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what?
I saw it. And it...
Because it was a great fake out.
Oh, my God.
The human was first. You think, oh, okay, the
baby's
had the
normal. Tongue. The tongue came out.
Yeah,
then it had a good roll up on the music. It was a good build. And then they all back away, and this thing crawls out of her.
Yeah,
oh, so good.
What is it? I don't know. Oh my God!
You know, there's a funny black and white picture of Data and Denise Crosby holding the lizard baby as their own baby. Have you seen that before?
No.
I'll forward it. I'll find it for you guys. It's actually kind of funny. I'm like, that's the V baby, and they're holding the V baby. So that prop
had human eyes.
That prop
had human eyes.
Survived. But yeah, the visitors were. That's it. That's the baby.
It's precious. And the noises that thing was making.
Oh, and because it's modulated too. Yeah. Look,
and they put the voice reverb on it.
But I mean, I remember there was a scene where
that show was violent too. That show was very violent.
But I mean, they used a lot of World War II collaborators.
Oh, yeah, it was Nazi Germany. I mean, it was a straight up allegory. It even had a Jew had been in a concentration camp, or I guess he had fled.
Yes,
Nazi Germany.
Right.
And
which, believe it, of course, as I'm a 9-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid watching this, I didn't pick up on those references. But now, when I watch it later, I'm like, wow, this is obviously what it is.
I just want to say I emailed Kenneth Johnson, and he responded to me.
Yes, you've said that on the show before.
Okay, well, he did. It happened. And I'll probably mention it again. And you'll be okay with it.
You have to produce the email. Produce that email.
I think I have it somewhere.
Read it on the next show. You have. Right, that's your
That's
homework.
mine. That's like the visitors. I'm gonna pass the baton now, Mike.
Okay, I got one.
Okay,
this is one that they genuinely scared me, and I think in the remake they were equally as frightening. Is the Martians from War of the Worlds? There's a very similar scene in both movies where they're in the house and a Martian is, I remember watching that movie at my grandmother's. That movie freaked me out. And then when Spielberg recreated it with those, they were obviously CG.
Good sound effects in that movie.
They were very reminiscent of the original design.
Yeah,
but they look mean. They look like they were just very hostile. And, and then you have, of course, in the original movie, you have that great image at the end. The ship crashes, the ramp lowers, and you just see its hand.
Like fall out. Its hand looked a lot like, kind of like E.T.'s hand.
Yeah, it did.
Anyway, I thought those were like some of the first aliens I recall seeing. And the original is awesome, and I like the remake a lot too. I think the remakes.
I saw the remake in the theater. I think I saw it with you, Jared. Possibly.
You may have. No, I saw it with. I tell this story. I saw it with Raphael. We all know Raphael. And so the Spielberg version, kind of as the old version does, it sort of follows the original book, where, spoiler alert, the aliens are susceptible to the cold virus, like the common cold. And that's what knocks them out. And, it says that at the end of the Spielberg version, and Raphael says, dude, that is so lame. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, what, they get a cold? And I was like, that's the story. That's how it is in the book.
I mean, it's in the original movie too. I mean, it's like,
that is lame. I'm like, okay.
I remember when I saw that as a kid, even as a kid, when I saw it, I was like, oh, wow. I just thought that was a really...
Yeah, it's not something like a kid thinks about.
It was the common cold that took them out.
It's not like they could get inoculated or anything.
Yeah. Hey, remind me of this real quick before we move on. There was a scene in the Spielberg movie where, kind of a very dark scene, where Tom Cruise has to kill Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What? All I remember is watching it and feeling kind of disturbed by it.
Yeah, well, what happened was Tim Robbins' character was freaking out,
and
yelling, and he basically told Dakota Fanning, I think he covered her eyes and covered her ears, and then he walks in there, and I think you hear him fight, and then Tim Robbins goes quiet, and then Tom Cruise comes back out of the room.
Okay. Oh, so you didn't see it?
No, you don't see the fight.
But it is kind of
it's clear. Yeah,
disturbing.
It's clear what he's doing. It's clear what he's doing.
I kind of had this image. I don't remember that, but I had this image of the Private Ryan scene where the guy's the one-on-one fight upstairs, and the guy puts his knife through the ribs. He's like,
oh yeah,
he's like, that's the worst death scene of all time.
That's pretty horrific.
World of Worlds was a good movie. I like that movie. I remember enjoying Spielberg's version. I don't remember it too much, but I should revisit it at some point.
Well, I'm gonna pick an alien creature here. It's not going to win me any points for originality. I'm going to say Yoda.
Sure. Why not?
As far as believability, especially as a kid, there was no question I thought Yoda was real. And, I don't care what people say. I think the puppet holds up. In Empire Strikes Back, it looks fantastic, and it looks like a real creature.
Well, Yoda is supposed to be old. And the puppet, the way the puppet moves is, it's akin to how someone who's really aged would kind of move. I don't think it's I never questioned it. I still don't question it.
No,
I think if you're trying to make that puppet spry and young back then, it might be a little less believable. But the fact that it was an old being that walked with a cane, I think those motions really worked for it. The puppeteer motions worked for it.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us. And binds us. Luminous beings are we. Not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Great voice.
Oh, yeah, the whole thing. I prefer the puppet Yoda to CGI Yoda. Oh, yeah. Although I recognize why he's CGI Yoda, and some of the CGI Yodas look better than others, and they did replace Catcher's Mitt face Yoda from Episode 1 with a far superior CGI version of Yoda.
I never understood that.
The Elvis sideburns and the just, I don't know, a creature with his lifespan, Baby Yoda notwithstanding, in the 30 years or so between...
He's not going to change that much.
No, and he looked like, he looked kind of like fat Elvis Yoda.
And we've already established that he was, 900 years old?
Yeah, so
it wouldn't have been that much of a stretch just to use the puppet almost identical.
Yeah.
Better clothes, maybe.
But they had to, age him down, say, oh, this is young Yoda, even though it's 30 years ago.
Which is like, 2 years on our scale.
Sure. So
yeah, no, I know. But yeah, Yoda's great. I love what they did with Yoda throughout the series. I think I think his character had great arcs.
Yeah.
I think, we were very lucky in the prequels to get all the Yoda that we
more
had.
Yoda. Yeah.
I like what they did with Yoda in the sequels too. So Yoda's been consistent throughout the whole Star Wars saga, in my opinion. I'm going to throw my last alien on the table here. Then
that's pretty terrible.
It's kind of like an alien, like the movie Alien and Aliens. Terrifying. A lot of suspense in the movie, and it's The Thing.
Oh gosh. Yes.
And it's kind of hard to even pinpoint what exactly The Thing is because you never really know because it's all kinds of things. But The Thing in general is one of those terrifying concepts that just clicks. You watch that movie, I don't care how old you are, there's people watch it now.
Still hold up.
It's great practical effects, and there's almost no music in it. There's just the subtle score, and it's
Morricone.
It's very, very scary. Great suspense. Back when suspense was important, there's a lot of movies that transitioned over to just kind of like jump scares. Like
that's one of those movies I would say is about perfect.
Yeah, I mean it had great builds, good characters.
It's like a whodunit. It's a whodunit.
Yeah, of course. It's a murder mystery with an alien, and it's a terrifying alien. But I think The Thing is definitely one of my top aliens.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good one. I remember Mike had the action figure.
Yeah. It broke. All the pieces kept breaking off because it was
what kind of action figure was The Thing? Just like a
one
modular,
was,
different weird hands and faces that pop
it
out
was
of it?
Blair in his final form, and he came with a the spider head.
That's a dark toy to play with, man.
He didn't play with it. He displayed it, much to his roommate's agitation.
I don't know what I did. I think I threw it away because it just kept breaking apart.
The Thing prequel I like a lot too.
I haven't seen that.
I think watching Jared, did we do the Thing prequel?
No, we didn't. But you've told us before about how you enjoy it.
Totally recommend watching it and then going right into The Thing because it takes you right up to the beginning of The Thing and it plays very well. Good movies,
cool.
But yeah, The Thing, guys. That's my last alien.
Well, I'm gonna do one.
Go.
I got one on hand. This one is a little unusual, but I think it's a great movie. Alien. Edgar. Alien.
I love Edgar.
From Men in Black.
Oh man. Vincent D'Onofrio, freak of nature.
He did such a good job, man.
I need. Yes. Means the world to me.
His physical acting in that movie is so good.
Yeah, where he's just
good.
walking
and he's just falling apart. His skin is just.
He keeps pushing his arms out and like, God, that is a hilarious performance.
I was just thinking about him the other day. Yeah, it's such a good character, such a good call.
What's up, Farmer John?
Oh, a man came in here earlier. A dead man.
And that means what to me?
He was a very dear friend of mine. I believe he had an animal with him. It was a gift I gave him. A pet cat. It means worlds to me. I'd like to have it back.
Edgar, your skin's falling off your bones.
I need to watch that again, man.
Those are good movies, man. Men in Black, the first Men in Blacks are really fun. Those such good movies.
Oh, I thought the third one was terrific.
Is that the one with Josh Brolin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't bad. I enjoed that.
I liked it a lot. It's got
maybe I saw
Jermaine Clement as
yes,
Boris.
Yeah. Oh God, yes, Jermaine Clement, man. Anything he does is worth watching.
So good. Yeah, Edgar, he's a good one.
I'm going to take another piece of low-hanging fruit here.
Do it.
I'm going to say Vulcans.
Fascinating. You have an efficient intellect, superior physical skills, no emotional impediments. There are Vulcans who aspire all their lives to achieve what you've been given by design.
You are half human.
Yes.
Yet you have chosen a Vulcan way of life.
I have.
In effect, you have abandoned what I have sought all my life.
Yeah, Vulcans.
Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock is probably one of the first aliens I remember. Because when I was a kid, I had a shirt with Mr. Spock on it. I hadn't even seen Star Trek. I think I was probably like 4 or 5. And he fascinated me from his, because of his appearance. And I was like, my dad, who's this guy? It's like, that's Mr. Spock. He's in Star Trek. Of course, I hadn't seen Star Trek yet, but
I had Mr. Spock. I had the Mr. Spock Amigo figure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are cool little figures. And
I think I had a Spock shirt too. It was like one of those iron-on.
Yes, it was an iron-on. It was a T-shirt that he was ironed on.
I had an iron-on Spock shirt.
Yep.
I remember that.
The iron-on Spock shirt. And, I especially, Leonard Nimoy specifically as Spock is just a great character.
My mom loves sci-fi, and my favorite color was blue. So I think she just picked up the Spock shirt because I wore blue, and she figured she's going to get me into sci-fi in one way or another. That's the first sci-fi show I ever remember watching, really, as a kid.
Here's a
with Star Trek.
side note.
The Gorn.
I'm revisiting the original series, and I'm reading These Are the Voyages when I read each episode.
Yes, okay. That's a great book, by the way.
And, you hear all this trash talk about Shatner and how, everyone hated him. Well, if you read that book, all the co-stars that came on the show, like, the special guest for each episode, they all loved Shatner. They're like, "Oh, Shatner was great." And they all Nimoy was kind of an oddball.
Yeah, he was really standoffish, and I remember reading that. He wasn't they wouldn't say he was a jerk. He was just really kind of off by himself.
Yeah, that he just they loved working with Shatner, but Nimoy was that Nimoy guy was kind of a weirdo.
Not to go down that rabbit hole too much, but I think what sums up in my opinion that whole kind of cast feud with Shatner is when Sulu, what's his name? I can't think of his guy's
George
name.
Takei.
George
Takei complained that his character wasn't going to be made a captain.
Yes. I remember that.
You hear what Shatner's like, I thought I was keeping him in the movie more.
We're almost going to Galaxy Quest level of ridiculous. There's that kind of egotistical, this is who I am. It's not just a character. It's they're just identifying. And I remember thinking, you know what? These guys are all assholes.
Sulu isn't a real person, George.
It's just I remember that. That was his argument. And he's just I'm like, really?
If I was Shatner, I'd be like, okay, George, you're captain of the Excelsior. You're not in the movie. Is that cool?
Yeah, because if you think about it, when they did finally make him captain, he's in the movie for 10
2
minutes.
minutes, not even 10 minutes.
I mean, granted, it's great. The scene at the end where he shows up.
You got your promotion.
Scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, his screen time was definitely cut down.
Well, I remember he thought he was going to parlay that into his own Captain Sulu show, and that never materialized. So, but Leonard Nimoy. And I got to say, in closing, I remember a few years back when Leonard Nimoy died, I was really sad about that.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and I played that day, I played the soundtrack to Wrath of Khan, and it was just kind of
years of travel.
Yeah, it was
human.
It was just, it was sad because he was of course, James Doohan had passed on and DeForest Kelly, but Leonard Nimoy was one of the giants. That's something we're going to see a lot more here in the coming years.
It's a hard thing watching our heroes go away.
Yeah.
So it's,
but
facts of life, but it's tough.
Yeah. So,
but at least we have great movies and stuff to,
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and you know what, guys? You're lucky because you've downloaded this episode and you can keep this episode forever.
Aliens.
Well,
I had to say that one time.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode. Season 4 is hot and heavy. It is rolling. We want you to be a part of it. Pick up some merchandise while you're at it. Why not get a coffee mug? Celebrate your pioneering with the podcast here.
We'll be back here next week with another hot, steaming, fresh cup of whatever we're doing, and you'll enjoy it. We'll see you next time.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.